Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and iOS 26.4.1 released to the public a week or so ago, and iOS 26.5 Beta 2 has been out to developers and public beta testers for a few days. But there's even more to talk about since the iOS 26.5 Beta 2 is out What's New video. We'll talk about the latest Apple news, we'll also talk about some new features, and we'll talk about the overall experience. Not just my experience, but your experience based off the YouTube community poll on the post page, where at the time of this video there's over 9,000 votes and 93 comments. I've gone over all the comments to determine what the update is like for most of us, so be sure to stick around toward the end of the video where I'll read some of your comments as well. Now, Apple will soon be able to restore software on an Apple Watch without sending it outside of the Apple Store. Since the Apple Watch launched years ago, if you were on a beta and wanted to go back to the public version, without waiting for an update, you actually had to bring it to an Apple Store and then they would send it out, have it restored, and then it would be sent back to the Apple Store for you to pick up later. Now they should be able to fix it in store for any issue you have with software. So this is great news. I really wish they would give us a way to connect it at home so we could restore it, but at least we'll be able to do it in the store now and not have to wait for it. Siri 2.0 is on its way, but at this point, probably not until iOS 27. Apple is now sending many Siri engineers to a multi-week boot camp to learn to use code using AI according to the information. 60 people are still staying back at Apple to continue work on Siri to get it ready to launch, and it seems like probably again with iOS 27. Many of us had thought we'd see it already with iOS 26.3 or iOS 26.4, but it looks like Apple is pushing it back to get everything right, and hopefully we actually see it released to the public in September when iOS 27 launches. On April 26th, there's a marathon in London, and Apple has announced that they'll be hosting events to go along with it. You'll see it here on their Apple Newsroom website where it says Apple gears up for the TCS London Marathon. So if you want more information about it, I'll link it in the description below, and you can see all the different events that go along with it. A recent video from Veritasium in partnership with MKBHD showed how you could easily take money from someone using NFC with Express Transit mode enabled on your iPhone. Now, technically, the vulnerability is on the Visa side, but you can protect yourself by turning off Express Transit mode in the Wallet app. So if we go into Wallet, and you'll see in your card information details, Express Transit. Now I have it off as I don't use this, but make sure it's off if you're worried about this vulnerability being exploited. So this will now force you to actually verify any transaction that goes through using your passcode or Face ID. On April 22nd, Apple has a new Earth Day activity challenge for Apple Watch. To earn the badges, you need to complete a 30-minute workout or longer. Then on April 29th, there's another activity challenge for International Dance Day. You can earn those badges by completing a dance workout of 20 minutes or more. You can see the different badges on Mac Rumors, where they've posted them for Earth Day as well as International Dance Day. So again, those are taking place on the 22nd and the 29th. Apple is said to be launching more satellite-based features with iOS 27 this year as well, and Apple has made a deal with Amazon, who just purchased Globalstar, who operates those satellites. You can see on Amazon News where it says Amazon to acquire Globalstar and expand Amazon Leo satellite network. Amazon Leo will continue to support the current satellite features and most likely will help with future features as well, and Apple even commented on the acquisition, saying that Apple and Amazon have a long and proven track record of working together through Amazon's core infrastructure services, and we look forward to building on that collaboration with Amazon. This was actually said by Greg Joswiak, who is Apple's Senior Vice President of Worldwide Product Marketing, so hopefully we see more features in the future. Now, when it comes to new features, one thing I wanted to mention that got updated on Apple's backend that you can actually see on iOS 26.4.1 and iOS 26.5 Beta 2. For example, if we go into the App Store here, and within the App Store, you can see under your Apple account that there's now app updates at the top. Prior to this, it was down toward the middle and just said updates. They were able to update this on the back end and then move it around without having to push out a software update. So you should see that change again on 26.5 Beta 2 and 26.4.1. Ads are on their way in the USA and other countries for Apple Maps, but I just wanted to clarify, as this is sort of like the App Store ads, similar to what we see now. So if we go into the App Store, you'll see here where someone's promoting their app, and they can pay to promote it on the front page or other places. This is going to be similar within the Maps app. So I saw quite a few people upset about this, but this is only going to promote local, maybe restaurants that people pay to show here, just like Google Maps has. And I saw a lot of comments saying that people are going to leave and go to Google Maps. However, you'll see the exact same thing there as well. Now, why Apple is doing this, we don't know, but it is another revenue stream for them. So that's something we should see in the near future, and we'll have to see if it's intrusive or not. Now, there are other features in iOS 26.5, but not a whole lot with Beta 2. I've already gone over Beta 1 in different videos, but we do have some updates with things such as connecting a new Magic Trackpad, or maybe a Magic Mouse or Apple Keyboard. It will automatically pair, and you'll see a notification on your screen, especially on an iPad. We'll see a few other options here and there, but we're not seeing a ton of features with iOS 26.5 yet. So there's not a whole lot going on. That alarm option I've mentioned before within clock, maybe if you're in the alarms here, we go into our sleep-wake alarm and scroll down. We have a new option for always play on iPhone. So not a whole lot going on just yet. Hopefully with Beta 3, we see more. As far as app updates this week, one thing I wanted to mention is we now have a Gemini app specifically for Mac. So there's an update there. There's an updated app for Claude as well. So we're seeing more and more of this. And of course, you can use this instead of just waiting for Siri 2.0 right now. So that's what I've been using. It works well. And we should see similar progress from Apple with Siri 2.0 since it's supposed to integrate some of Gemini's models. So hopefully we'll see that sooner rather than later. With the weekly iOS tip this week, it goes along with the App Store. Apple moved the App Store update area. However, that's sort of a pain to go into your account and then go down to your app updates. There's a much faster way to do this just by haptic pressing on the App Store and going to updates. Go right into it and you're directly right into your updates. So again, haptic press on the App Store, go into your updates, and there's no going through multiple menus to get there. So hopefully that will speed that up for you. Now it looks like we got the first leak of iOS 27. I made a short about this, but if you haven't seen that, we got a few different things thanks to some backend code that Mac Rumors found. One of them has to do with visual intelligence that should help you be able to scan food labels. So if you have a nutrition label from food, you should be able to scan it, and hopefully it will give more information and then integrate directly into the Health app as well, and maybe even give us more information about that. Before, it was rumored that iOS 27 would add a health assistant, and so maybe this goes along with that. Another visual intelligence feature would allow you to scan phone numbers and addresses right into your contacts. You can already do some of that with calendar dates using visual intelligence, but being able to scan contacts and phone numbers directly into the Contacts app would be super helpful. So if we go into Contacts, you'll see here, we could maybe just scan something we see on a billboard, or maybe scan something nearby and then create a contact directly off that. So that's pretty simple, but seems to be helpful. Also, we should be able to use digital passes by scanning them directly again from your camera. So maybe you have something such as a gym pass, maybe that they don't have a digital option for. You may be able to create a digital version of that on your iPhone that works for scanning barcodes or other things as well. The other feature they found has to do with Safari being able to intelligently name tab groups you already have based on the content of the pages you're viewing. For example, I have one here that says Porsche. If I was looking at a lot of different things to do with Porsche, maybe it would recommend that or just put that title up there. Again, if it was to do with Apple, like most of these tabs are, this is my fault for mislabeling this, but if most of these had to do with Apple, it could just say Apple there. So that would be really helpful, just sort of taking away some of that extra step that you typically would need to do. Now, as far as releases this week, well, Apple stopped signing iOS 26.4, so you can no longer downgrade to that or iPadOS 26.4. We could see another update before iOS 26.5, maybe with iOS 26.4.2 to fix additional issues we'll talk about in a moment, but at this point you can't downgrade. Now, iOS 26.5 Beta 2 released over the air with a build number ending in the letter H, but on Apple's release website, it ended in the letter D and was a different build number. So if we go into that build here, we'll go to our new tabs, or our last group we were in here, 4 tabs, go here, and you'll see at the top, once we go back here, you'll see here that we have that same build number. Initially, you could not install this via the IPSW file. However, Apple updated it so you could, but then this is the wrong build number. It's the same build number we already have that you can find within your settings under General, Software Update. Wait for it to load here, go to more details, tap the version number, and 23F5054H. So it looks like they've messed that up and haven't updated it entirely yet. Apple also released some new firmware for the Magic Keyboard Folio. Apple released the first firmware update for the iPad 10th generation with the Magic Keyboard Folio, and if we go into our settings, you can see the firmware update here, where it's now on the new version, which is 0560.0610. So that's the latest version. It updates on its own. There's no way to start it. Just leave it connected to the internet, and it will update on its own. But there is an update for it. What it does specifically, we don't know, but there is a firmware update for it. Now, we expect iOS 26.5 Beta 3 as soon as Monday or Tuesday of next week. Now, typically we'll see after the second beta, we'll switch to sort of a weekly release schedule. However, they could push that out an additional week. However, I would expect Beta 3 on the 20th or 21st at this point. Then we could see Beta 4 on the 27th, or maybe the RC with a public release in early May, or maybe around May 11th. Now, we don't have any specific confirmed dates, but that's what I would expect at this point. We could also see some additional updates in between then, maybe between now and next Monday. You never know what Apple's going to do. They don't typically do weekend releases, but you never know what they're going to push out. And hopefully we see an update, though, at least on Monday, to fix some additional issues we'll talk about in a moment. Of course, most of us are waiting to see the big update with iOS 27, which we expect on June 8th. Apple should show that off at WWDC 2026, and then of course we'll have betas, a public beta typically in early July, with a public release usually in mid-September around the iPhone 18 launch. So we're looking forward to that. Many of us are looking forward to stability, improved battery life, and much more. So I can't wait to see what they do there, and hopefully we really do get that snow leopard year with just a few refinements and a few features here and there. When it comes to the overall experience, first let's talk about AirPods Pro 3. Now with the AirPods Pro 3, I've been having some issues with them using them with my Mac while editing videos this week. They sort of degrade in quality and then sometimes almost disconnect, or I'll lose maybe sound in one ear and then it will come back. It's just been a bit of a pain. I've had no issues on the iPhone with it, but just with the Mac for some reason. There's been no firmware updates or anything else, so I'm not sure what's going on with these at this point. But there hasn't been anything out of the normal or out of the usual here, so I'm not sure why it's happening. When it comes to iOS 26.4.1, well, it's been out for over a week, and I had hoped it would get a little bit better, but so far it seems like there's quite a few issues. For example, one that we can repeat that crashes the system is if we go into jiggle mode and then maybe grab a widget. Let's grab a widget here and then move it back and forth rapidly. It seems to crash a lot of different phones. Now, many people can repeat this. You'll see it just jumped there. Some of the animations aren't smooth, but it can crash the phone for some people. It's not doing it right now, but many people are able to repeat this at this point. Also, there's an alarm bug where many people are saying their alarms are not sounding properly, and I've talked about that before. Also, CarPlay connectivity is still a problem on some vehicles. In the comments, one person mentioned their Jeep Wrangler wasn't connecting properly. Thankfully, I haven't had that many issues. I did notice it was more problematic on iOS 26.4.1 though, compared to 26.5. Icon animations seem to stop working properly when maybe you're in clear mode, so sometimes the animations just wouldn't work properly for some people. And then also RAM management continues to be an issue for many people. Of course, the wallpaper bug is still there, so if we go into our wallpaper, if we pull down here, you'll see it's nice and vibrant, swipe home, and it desaturates. Why this happens over and over, we don't know, but it does seem better on 26.5. Also, there's some odd issues in Safari where sometimes it will show just a black page and then you're unable to open it or just close the tab. So you'll have to reboot to fix that. So some odd bugs going on. Even after a week, it just hasn't gotten better that way. With iOS 26.5 Beta 2, they've fixed a few things, but there's also some bugs remaining. If we open a new tab here, so if we go in maybe to new tab, some people were saying that it would stutter. It's no longer doing that. Other people are reporting that the keyboard is improved. So if we go into notes, so within the keyboard, it definitely seems to be fixed for me, but this is the keyboard on iOS 26.5 Beta 2. And you'll see it works fine. All the presses are correct. Even on older devices, it seems to be improved as well. Also, it still stutters when we maybe lock the phone, unlock, and swipe home. You'll see it sort of jump at the last moment. It stutters sometimes while swiping, and it's a little bit slow. And the same is true when we swipe up from Notification Center. So this is something that hasn't been resolved. It's not going away until probably Beta 3 at this point. And again, there's some lag throughout. You'll see there was lag right there, but when it speeds up, it stays fast. And then there's just occasional lag again when you stop and then start again. So definitely some odd issues here that need to be improved. As far as overall heat and thermals, well, 26.4.1 seems to be pretty good. 50% still report the phone heating up out of nowhere, but again, 50% say they have no issues, and typically you get more people complaining about it that have the issue than don't. So it seems like it's decent, but again, you have to give it some time, especially if you just updated. However, with iOS 26.5 Beta 2, not one person has complained about their phone overheating. So maybe there are some people complaining about it, but so far we haven't seen it at all. Now let's go ahead and run benchmarks and then take a look at the overall heat. On the iPhone 17 Pro Max running iOS 26.5 Beta 2, we're right around 36.9 or 37 degrees Celsius. And on iOS 26.4.1 on the iPhone Air, we're right around 42 to 43 degrees Celsius. So right where they normally are. A little bit warmer on the iPhone Air today, though, than before, but again, well within margins and where it should be, as we're not getting any overheat message. Now let's take a look at benchmarks. On iOS 26.4.1 on the iPhone Air, you'll see we have 3,721 for single-core, 9,252 for multi-core. If we compare that with before, it's a little bit lower, but again, sometimes you need to run this a few times when things aren't processing, and they typically improve, but it's well within the margin of error here. Now on the iPhone 17 Pro Max with iOS 26.5 Beta 2, we have 3,824 for single-core, 9,783 for multi-core. Again, comparing to before, this seems to be a little bit better even than when it released. So it seems like it's improving, and of course it should after it's done processing in the background. Now as far as overall battery life, let's go ahead and take a look at iOS 26.4.1 first. Thanks again to Abhishek for sending this in. This is on an iPhone 16e running iOS 26.4.1 with 99% battery health set to an 85% charge limit. And you'll see he had 6 hours and 45 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 23 minutes of screen off time, and used 93% of the battery. Typically, he gets 7 to 8 hours of screen on time with the device, so it's staying right where you would expect. When it comes to iOS 26.5 Beta 2, let's take a look at my battery life. I've been using it full time on the 17 Pro Max, and under battery health, I'm at 100% with 63 cycles. If we take a look at battery life itself, it is getting me through the day, but the other day, 3 hours and 19 minutes of screen active time, 51 minutes of screen idle time using 66%. If we go back to a few days ago, again, 3 hours and 16 minutes using 67%, and it seems like it's improving overall, but it is getting me through the day despite me only having 34% right now. Now, if you're wondering if you should install iOS 26.4.1 or iOS 26.5 betas, well, for the overall bug fixes, iOS 26.4.1 should be okay, but again, Apple could push out another update if they need to resolve additional issues. But I wouldn't install iOS 26.5 Beta 2 trying to solve issues, as it's still a little bit buggy and could use some improvement. As I mentioned before, it does stutter a little bit, as when I swipe left to right. Sometimes while scrolling with ProMotion it seems okay, but then going back to the lock screen, going back to the home screen from there, it's just a little bit stuttery and jumps around. So this is something that they need to resolve, and hopefully Beta 3 does it. So again, I wouldn't recommend installing it just yet unless you're on earlier betas and testing this out. When it comes to overall storage, let's go ahead and take a look at that. So we'll go into settings, see if it's changed at all. The storage itself is found under General and iPhone Storage. We'll wait for it to load, and we'll scroll down to the bottom, and let's check 26.4.1 as well. You'll see iOS 26.5 is using just a little bit more data, and that is due to, well, the OS a little bit, 14.24 gigabytes compared to 14.02. That could be the difference of the Air versus the 17 Pro Max, but very similar here. And again, with system data, it varies and goes up and down anywhere from 1 gigabyte or less, maybe to 60 gigabytes or more, depending on how much storage is available and what it needs to complete in the background. But I wouldn't pay attention to that. It's cache data and other things, and will go up and down on its own. Now, as far as the overall experience and what you had to say, let's take a look at some of your comments. Barry Schaefer said, running iOS 26.5 Public Beta 2 on an iPhone 16 Pro Max. I'm not positive, but at least for baseball games going on right now, the live updates are only showing the team logos and not the score. I need to track one more game in a different sport before I confirm, unless you or anyone else is having the same problem. I only installed the beta late last night. The AAO Show 1 said, running 26.5 beta 2, no problems here actually. Battery life is normal for me, unlike many other users. I'm on an iPhone 14 with 89% battery health and get decent life per day. Unsure of the exact number though, but in my head it's around 10 to 12 hours. CWeber9112 said, I'm currently on 26.4.1 on my iPhone Air. I'm having major issues connecting to my Apple CarPlay in my 2026 Jeep Wrangler. Most times it won't connect even if I plug in a wired cord. I'm also having issues with my AirPods 4 with active noise cancellation. The connection gets lost and then will return with the sound being very robotic. I have to put my AirPods back in the case and then take them back out again, and I'm having that same issue. King Luce TV4774 said, using my iPhone 13 I've had for a year and I'm running the latest beta version and having no issues so far. Battery may not be great, but no complaints here. Internet and mobile service seem to be running fine. Keep it up, Apple. Ahmed Hani 9854 said, iOS 26.4.1 on iPhone 14 Pro Max. Performance is great. Aside from a few animation glitches, battery life is far from good on this iteration. Aiden Middleton 4550 said, I'm on iOS 26.4.1 on iPhone 17 Pro Max. Performance is super fast, it's super smooth, and battery life is superb, by far the best update of iOS 26. Should have been like this from the start. Can't wait for iOS 27 and Siri 2.0. Xakiro X HD said, iOS 26.5 Beta 2 running way better than 26.4 in all aspects. Great battery life on 17 Pro Max. Kenneth Booth 3529 said, 17 Pro Max running 26.5 Beta 2. Battery life on the phone seems fine, no excessive drain, and no heating up. I did notice an odd lag when opening third-party apps, but after running the updates they were fine. A hard reboot took slightly longer than usual. Lastly, texting with Android users seems to have a lot of failed messages. It fixes after reboot, but does come back after a few hours. I would say iOS 26.4.1 has sad battery. The number one complaint on iOS 26.4.1 after a week is poor battery life. While the update does fix a few issues, UI lag persists for some, and generally the update is smooth, but it still needs an update to resolve the ongoing issues. It seems like Apple pushes out an update, it fixes a few bugs, but then either some remain or it introduces new bugs as well. So this continues on and on. So you'll see it's smooth on the iPhone Air, but not everything else. With iOS 26.5 Beta 2, it's a positive move. iOS 26.5 Beta 2 is a positive move in the right direction with numerous improvements, but still odd bugs remain that mostly have to do with lag or animation. Hopefully the next beta finally brings us closer to the experience we expect so far from the initial launch of iOS 26. It should be much smoother than this at this point and really needs that refinement, and maybe we won't see it until iOS 27. And so that's everything with iOS 26.4.1 and iOS 26.5 Beta 2. Let me know how your experience is going for you in the comments below. Hopefully it gets much better, as I said, and I'm looking forward to the next beta. Of course, I'll link this wallpaper in the description like I normally do, and if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.